Hey everyone, welcome back to the Libertas International podcast. I'm your host again, Tyler Schwab. And is this recording? Yes, it is. At this point, I'm sure you guys have heard or at least have seen, those of you that don't speak Spanish, the interview with one of the survivors that supports us here at Libertas International, a survivor that we support going to social work school, but also who sits on our board of governors to help us create a more trauma-informed, survivor-centered organization. And her story is just so moving and so amazing that I wanted to share it. I wanted to share it in English as well. And considering this survivor does not speak English, I'll call her Darling. I figured I would just tell you what it says in English, because it is such a beautiful, beautiful story. And it all started out in 2018. In 2018, there was a case that was referred involving a gang, an MS-13 gang that was trafficking young girls in a city of Santa Rosa, Guatemala, which is probably like an hour and a half north of the main city, Guatemala City. And this gang was being controlled by a local judge, female judge in the city that was trafficking these girls. And Darling happened to be one of those victims. Darling was around 11 when she first fell into this trafficking ring due to the economic necessity that existed in her family. There was a guy that was in her community that would rape her first and then take her after he quote unquote tried out the product, as he would tell her, to take her to a house in Guatemala City where she would then be exploited, and then he sold her into a trafficking ring that was a little closer to where this survivor lived out in Santa Rosa. Now, if you guys have been to Santa Rosa, you'll know that the city has a very interesting history. It's a city it was built by the slaves, essentially. There is the River of the Slaves, which runs through the entire city, and then there's a bridge called the Bridge of the Slaves, which the bridge is considered to be haunted because all these natural disasters that have hit Guatemala, these hurricanes, these floods, these wars, everything that's happened, and the bridge still stands. And some people say because it was built by slaves that it's haunted. It's the Bridge of the Slaves. It's haunted. It's blessed by the devil, and there's nothing bad's ever going to happen to it. And so this case, it took place in the city because it's such an interesting, dichotomy, because, this survivor, Darling, and it would not be short to say that she changed my life. She's amazing. I love her very much. I can't imagine Libertas International without her. She was trafficked by this local gang, and there was an operation that was planned. The Guatemalan police invited me to go along. And so when I go on these things, I have this little backpack prepared, usually, that has stuff in it like teddy bears, food, snacks, water, clothing, whatever a survivor may need in a moment of rescue, of recovery. And it happened on this big lake. So I've been back to a couple of times. It's always surreal to go back there and just remember what exactly happened there. The op happened, and Darling was there. She immediately caught my eye. She's 13 years old. She was wearing these big high heels. She had barely any clothing on. She was dressed to be exploited. And she was 13. She's just little itty bitty. And she was 13 years old, but because she's Guatemalan and she's small, she looked a lot smaller than that. So, during this time, the bad guys were arrested, the victims were separated from the perpetrators, and I tried to get to know Darling, and she wanted absolutely nothing to do with me during that time, which is totally cool. That's totally normal, and we're not ever going to force our friendship or our support on anybody. She took a shirt to put on, and she took a teddy bear to hold during the legal process, which lasted probably lasted 7 or 8 hours. Long time. We had food, we had Uno that we played, but Darling wanted no part of this. So the process happened. The police got what they were looking as far as evidence, and then sorry, my mic went out. So then the police got their evidence, and they took Darling to an aftercare home in Guatemala City with our amazing partners down there called El Refugio de la Niñez. internationally known nonprofit. Their founders won the Tip Hero Award. Great guy, and hopefully he'll come on our podcast very soon. Unfortunately, sometimes with these operations, these girls can get lost in the system sometimes, and that's what happened. She went into the aftercare home. She got sent home by a judge. I think we've mentioned a couple previous podcasts, if you've been listening to us for a while, that a lot of the system in Guatemala depends on judges and their willingness to keep the girl outside of a home or inside the home, or who's putting political pressure on them. And in this situation, Darling got sent home. Changed phone numbers. We lost contact with her for a couple years. Now I'll tell you my side of the story, and I'll tell you her side of the story of how we reconnected. On my side of the story is I was doing some cleanup, and I wanted to make sure that all the girls that were supported in that operation were getting support. You notice if you look on Libertas International's website, compared to other groups that do intervention work, our numbers are not near as high. There's a reason for that. We will never publish a number of a rescue or recovery without knowing exactly where that survivor is and knowing that she's getting help afterwards. We're not in the game of these numbers. We want to have real impact to where if we report in Guatemala that 2 bad guys were arrested and 5 survivors were rescued, that you can be sure that those 5 survivors are getting the help that they deserve. And our report back may be 15, 16, but we're going to report a lower number because we want to make sure that all those survivors get reported. We only want to be sure of the numbers that we report. And so when I was looking at that, I wanted to make sure that those survivors that we reported were getting the help that they needed, even after the fact. And so a couple of those survivors, we helped with small businesses. We helped one with a used clothing store. Marissa, who was on the podcast a couple months ago, she helped support this as well. She got a massive donation of used clothing that got sent down to Guatemala that she then gave this survivor to start a small business selling secondhand clothing. And as I was talking to this other survivor from the same case, she was like, "Hey, you should talk to Darling." And I was like, "You know where she is?" Like, "Yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of her for years, but no one seems to have current contact information with her," which is not uncommon. When you live in a society that's extremely poor and a lot of your phones are burner phones, you switch numbers a lot. It's like, "Yeah, I've got a number for you. And so here's her number. Give her a call. Here's a current picture of her, and just explain who you are. And I told her about you, that you were helping me, but she's very penosa, very shy. I didn't want to reach out for help." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give her a call." I got her number, and then I had planned to call her that evening. From Darling's point of view, she's incredibly intelligent. She's an amazing, amazing young woman, and she's really intelligent, but her mom has some disabilities, and her dad is an addict. And so what that means is a lot of the economic pressure falls on her or her siblings, and because of that, and because she's a minor at this time, she's only 16 years old, she did not have the ability to pay for school. The debt started to get up, the school debt that she had to take out. She had to pay for uniforms, pay for tuition. It just became too much to where she had to choose either to go to school or to eat, and obviously she chose food. And so she was, just struggling because her ultimate dream is just to graduate high school, to be a normal kid. Because unfortunately, during that operation, there was a leak in information to where her name got published in the local media as one of the girls rescued on this operation. And what does that mean for her? It means everybody knows now the worst thing that's ever happened to her. That there was an operation, that she was being trafficked, that she had gone through all this abuse, all at the tender age of 13. And if she could accomplish something on an education level, she could shed that reputation that she had and just graduate with her high school class like a normal girl that she wants to be, and then potentially go on to college if she could make enough money. So what she did is she was working hard. She got on the Facebook pages looking for jobs, and she found a Facebook page that was offering jobs for minors in Guatemala. And so this page is the McDonald's. There was a McDonald's kind of close to where she lived, and it was hiring minors in a legal way. And so she's like, "I'm going to apply at McDonald's." And so she goes to interviews on Monday, and she gets denied. Or she doesn't get denied. She has a great interview. She has a good resume. She makes a great first impression. And if any of you guys have met this girl, you would know exactly why, because she's just an amazing, amazing young woman. Makes a great first impression. They say, come back Wednesday. So she goes back home. She's hopeful. She's excited. She's ready to make an impact. Ready to gain employment in a meaningful way. So she does that. She comes back Wednesday, next round of interviews. She interviews again, and she does really well. And they're like, come back Friday. You're in the final round of interviews. Come back Friday. So she goes home. She's like, Mom, I'm really excited. I think that this finally might be hopeful for me. I can work part-time. I can study full-time. I can help out with cost of the house. I think I finally have caught my break. And so, unfortunately for this sweet darling, she had not caught her break. She went to her interview on Friday, and they told her that they had no spots left and to try again in a few months, but they had already filled all their vacant openings at McDonald's. And so she walked home, and she was very defeated, as you can imagine. And she stopped, and she just, the dam broke. She couldn't hold back her emotions anymore, and she just had to have a good cry. She was doing everything right. She was doing the best as she could, but based on the hand that was given her, she wasn't able to get a job at McDonald's. And around that same time, her phone started ringing. And it was when I had finally found some time to call her back. And she picked up, and I said, hey, darling, I don't know if you remember me, but I was on the operation. I'm helping some of the other girls from the case, just make some proyecto de vida, some life projects. And I'd love to help you too if you have some ideas of what you want to do. And she was like taken aback. She was like, yeah, like let me give you a buzz when I get home, maybe, and we can talk. And I was like, sounds good. Give me a video call and let's chat. And the way that she described the story, on the other podcast is, she was hopeful of like, well, maybe he'll help me. maybe Libertas will help me. And so she gets home, we had a video call, and she's telling me, my ultimate dream right now is really just to finish high school. I really want to graduate with my class, with my friends, and not have to spend, all this time just trying to find money so that I can do something meaningful. And so I was asking her, I was like, well, how far are you behind? Like, what does your income look like? What do you owe? And she was like, it's like $500. That's what I owe in school, and just haven't been able to make up that debt. And I was like, cool. Well, look, give me your mom's full name, because you can't receive money because you're still a kid. But if your mom's down with it, I'll send her some money. You guys can go pay that bill, get yourself all signed up. Let me know how much it costs, like books, school supplies, transport. Let's get you hooked up. Let's get you figured out. Let's get you caught up. Let's just get you a break. And she described it so awesome in the podcast, where she's just like, really? Like, for what? Like, what do you expect me to return? Do you need me to speak for you? Do you need me to do anything? And I was like, nope, just you deserve it. And this is what we want to do. And so that's what we did that week. We worked on it. We sent her some funds to get her school paid, to get her signed up for school, to get her in school. And she was able to just be a kid. She did a pageant. She hung out with friends, and she got great grades, and she just killed it. She was just being a kid. And, she was kind of, at that point in high school, she was trying to figure out what she wanted to do, and she wanted to know if we would help support her in college. And of course, like, we wanted to help cover her school too. And she sat down with one of my buddies, who's a social worker, because she has interest in helping survivors of vulnerable populations, whether it be trafficking survivors, women, kids, refugees, immigrants. Guatemala is an interesting country. Guatemala receives a lot of the immigrants that don't quite make it to the States, that maybe get caught up in El Salvador or Honduras, end up in Guatemala. In fact, the aftercare home that the darling was at, they actually have a separate home for migrants. And so she decided she wanted to study social work. And so she got all signed up for social work school. She's now attending college, and The sweet part of this story is she's just such a good kid. So in the high school that she goes to, there's a tradition I think is maybe a little bit more common in other places. In Wyoming, we didn't really do this, but it's getting the date that you graduate inscribed in a ring, like a class ring. And she wanted to do that. Their whole class did it. They graduated at some point in 2021, 2022. I don't remember the exact year, but Darling, she texted me one day and she was like, "Hey, if it's okay with you, I don't want to put my graduation date on my ring." And I said, "Well, you can do whatever the heck you want. It's your ring. So what are you going to put in there?" And she was like, "I want to put in there April 8th, 2018, which that's the day that she was rescued. That's the day that she was rescued from human trafficking. It's the day that she was finally freed from her abusers. And in her words, she said, it's the day I became free. It's the day that my life changed 100%. And so that's the date that I want on my ring is April 8th, 2018. And so that's what she has. She has that ring. I have so many pictures of it. It's amazing. And it's the most special ring. It's such a special item and so meaningful and so thoughtful. And she just continues to be that way. She's just an amazing individual, where now she serves on the board of Libertas International, creating curriculum for us as we continue to serve survivors in a more trauma-informed way. She helps us manage that program. She did an internship with our Colombia team. She spent 3 weeks down in Colombia interning with our Colombian team on a social work level, and during this time there was this big police operation in the country of Greece which freed a lot of Colombian women, and sweet Darling went with our social worker to help pick these women up and take them home, getting firsthand experience of just in the trenches. Darling, I've mentioned it a few times on the pod. I got an award a few months back, very special, very meaningful. The most meaningful part is that our whole team was there, my family was there, and members of our survivor family were there. And Darling made the trip down from Guatemala just for 24 hours to come and be there for me on that day. And I really believe that, Darling has a spot in the nonprofit. I believe that she will be running this thing one day. She is the most special thing about what we do at Libertas International. And it's cool to see that full circle. And I think it's very important to know that it was Darling that saved Darling in the end. The funding for the school was nice. The police operation was needed. But it's her that decides to save herself every single day. It's her that continues to fight for her dreams. It continues to work on herself and what she wants to accomplish, and she really is the most special part of Libertas International. And it's an honor for me to share her story on this podcast. It was an honor for me to have her on the podcast so that our Spanish-speaking audience can hear directly from her the way that she's been impacted. And it's an honor for me to share her story in English, to where our English-speaking audience that may not understand Spanish and didn't get to hear that interview can hear in my words what this girl means to me, what she means for the nonprofit. And we're so lucky and blessed to have this survivor with us. And I'm so thankful that she's here and that she continues to thrive and to heal in so many different ways. And it only happens because of you. Once again, dear donors, you guys are the ones that make all this happen. So please go visit libertasfreedom.org, make a donation, one time, monthly. Just do something. Join us, because, look at the impact. This story is just so crazy. And this ring, bro, this ring that this girl has, it's just the date of her rescue while she's going to social work school. The whole story is just so beautiful. She's attending social work school to one day serve survivors of human trafficking, herself being rescued from human trafficking. She wears this ring all the time that has the date that she was rescued and recovered from this. It's just such a beautiful story, and that's why she's the most special part of our nonprofit. And so we're doing good work. Keep us funded, keep us supported. our survivors are definitely worthy of your support. And so please go visit libertasfreedom.org, make a donation, send us a Venmo, whatever is the best for you. And on behalf of all of us here at Libertas International, I have no problem asking for money, because I know I'm asking for money on behalf of survivors like this. If this is what we're able to do with your donations, just this one survivor, imagine what we can do for so many with more support. And so please give us a look, check us out, listen to other episodes of the podcast, and help support what we're doing. Love you all so much. This is Tyler Schwab checking out from the Libertas headquarters. Thank you for joining us for another week on the Libertas International podcast. God bless you all and have a great night.